About 3 summers ago, I was obsessed with camping. My wife and 3 kids were so sick of going with me by midsummer that I went on a few solo camping trips just to give them a break. This particular weekend, I chose a more dangerous campground. It had more rough terrain and big drop-offs on the trails, so it was a place I could never take my 3 younger children. It was somewhere I had always wanted to explore but never had the time to do so. I headed out on a Friday afternoon. It was only about a half-hour drive to the campground. I planned to get the rig hooked up to electricity and head out to explore some of the closest trails. Nothing too rough for the first day. They gave me a campsite way in the back corner, away from the main roads, which I appreciated because I've always hated when groups of people walk by and stare into my campsite. For some reason, it made me feel like I was on display, and I didn't like that feeling. I hooked up the electricity and made sure everything was working well before throwing on my hiking boots and grabbing my backpack. I was gone maybe 2 hours, but I managed to get a good workout in. I was physically exhausted and ready to make dinner and relax. Later, I was all washed up and ready for bed. I grabbed my phone to send my wife a goodnight message and climbed up on the queen-size mattress in the bedroom. It was a fairly good-sized camper, and I was realizing as I laid down for the night that it would have been much more practical for one person to just have brought a tent. I was just about asleep when I heard someone or something rustling around outside. It sounded as if they were ransacking the campsite, but I never leave anything of value out in the open. Slightly concerned they may approach the motorhome next, I sat up, threw my shoes back on, and sat and listened for a few seconds. I heard whispering, so apparently it was in fact a human making all that noise. Peering out the window carefully so as not to be noticed, I saw 2 men. But these men weren't wearing all black and being stealthy as you would expect someone would be when ransacking campsites. They were wearing bright hiking gear. One of the men had on a straight-up neon yellow shirt. The other was wearing an orange shirt, and his shoes had reflectors on them. I had had enough, even though I knew it wasn't smart since there were 2 of them and 1 of me. I flung the door to my camper open. They didn't even flinch. These men had nerves of steel to be going through my things and not even acknowledging me when I made myself known. "Hey, get out of here," I yelled, knowing my wife would be so mad if she knew what I just did. And still, they didn't flinch. I couldn't believe how unbothered they were. They only moved when I made my way towards them, but I still don't think they were even moving because of me. It looked like they were just bored with my sight, not finding anything they wanted. I stood there watching them walk off to make sure they were leaving, and yelled, "Don't come back, either." But as I finished yelling, they disappeared straight into thin air. The night was clear, there was no fog, they literally disappeared right in front of me. I even walked out to the edge of the site and looked around, still in shock. But there was no sign of anyone having been there. I retreated back to the camper, and it took me quite a while to get to sleep, but I eventually did. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I was woken by the sound of people talking. At first I thought it was right outside the window where my head was laying. But as I woke up a little more, I realized the voices were coming from inside the camper. I quietly slid my shoes on and moved towards the doorway. I peered into the dining area, and there they were. The 2 men from earlier, sitting at the table, talking to each other as if they lived here. I was scared, but also angry. How did they get in without waking me anyway? The door was locked up tightly. It had 2 locks, one being a deadbolt type. I was angry and adrenaline had taken over by this point, so I marched straight into the open and said, "What the heck are you guys doing in here? Get out!" But they didn't even acknowledge me. It was as if they couldn't see or hear me. I walked over and went to put my hand on one of their shoulders to get their attention, and my hand went right through. I was instantly sick to my stomach. I had never experienced something like it. I needed to sit down, and sat down right with them. I knew as soon as my hand went through the shoulder, I was literally seeing ghosts. I took a few minutes to catch my breath, and as I was about to stand up again, the two men literally disappeared again right in front of me. They were sitting and holding cards 1 second, and the next, they and the cards were gone. Now, I'll never admit this, but I was pretty freaked out. I definitely didn't sleep that night, and I packed up to leave the next morning. I just wanted to get home to my wife and kids. I was researching the campground further and found many stories revolving around a pair of best friends who went camping together a few years back. One slipped and fell over the edge, grabbing onto a rock to keep him from falling all the way down to his death. The other did everything in his power to pull his friend up, but as his friend was almost up, he lost his footing and they both went over. Don't worry, Dave, I won't tell anyone you were scared. I've never had a submission quite like yours, so I had to share it. Thank you for sharing your story with us. If you have a paranormal story to share for an upcoming video, email it to the address in the description below. Thanks for being here, and I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. And with that, see you tomorrow, friends.